The Google Pixel 6 line was an exciting device for Android users when Google officially announced its first flagship would come with its own custom chip, Tensor. This phone has been highly criticized with bugs on both the software side and hardware side. I'm here to tell you why after returning my 6 Pro, I repurchased it. The Pixel 6 Pro is an amazing phone, hands down, and I'm not here to compare it to any other phone. Instead, I want to talk to you about why this phone is amazing, yes, even with bugs, what I consider its strengths and weaknesses, why I love it, and perhaps why you can too, and how it actually performs with its given features. The Pixel 6 Pro comes in 3 different colors: cloudy white, sorta sunny, and stormy black, which is the one that I actually have here. The specs are solid for its $899 starting price tag. Let me highlight some of the features that we usually care about the most on this screen here, and let's talk about why those specs along with the software makes this phone so great. The display is a 6.7-inch screen OLED with 120Hz refresh rate and HDR support. Memory and storage is 12 gigs of RAM and up to 512 gigabytes of storage. The battery can last up to 48 hours with a 5003 milliamp with fast charging, and the 48 hours battery life that you can actually get out of this phone is only with extreme battery saver though, so that's a caveat. The processor is Google Tensors with Titan M2 security. The rear camera module that you see here consists of 50 megapixel standard wide lens, 48 telephoto lens, that's 48 megapixel total telephoto lens, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens. The front facing camera is 11 megapixels. Video recording for the camera is 4K at 60 frames per second, and that's at the rear, and in the front is 4K at 30 frames per second for that front facing camera again. You can do 4K cinematic pan and 1080 at slow motion 240 frames per second. So if you're into filmmaking, this is a great device for pictures and videos. The active stabilization is great for vloggers or other types of handheld recording, and the cinematic pan is great for B-roll, which is something I use once in a while depending on what kind of cinematic B-roll I want to actually take. The camera is probably bittersweet for some, specifically on the video side, but let's talk about the pictures first. Google has done a fantastic job with its computational photography to work its magic when it comes to taking pictures with the Pixel device. Let's face it, a lot of tech reviews talk about specs and love to compare phones within their reviews, but the reality is this: the majority of phone users are average users. And even tinkerers like me use phones like average users for the most part. We don't pull out our phones out of our pockets and tinker with the photo app just to take a quick picture. Unless, of course, if you're actually doing an actual video shoot. We just want to go ahead and capture the moment before it's gone and put the phone back in our pockets and move on to the next thing. Google actually knows this and offers the best of both worlds. For example, if you're out and about and want to capture something quickly, the phone does a great job in daylight and at night in low light. I mean, let's take a look at some of these pictures. They look fantastic, and these are the pictures that I took when I first got the phone. This first picture was taken in low light in my utility closet. I just wanted something quick that I could just post on Instagram, and the phone did the job, and it did it well. It retains the details that capture the moment and tells that story. No pixel peeping, no searching for distortion, just snapping and moving on. How about this Halloween picture while trick-or-treating? A cool display from one of the neighbors. I don't want to carry around a mirrorless camera, especially when I'm out and about with friends and or family. I just want to relax, go out, enjoy the moment, snap pictures if I need to, and anything that's worthy, just save it as a memory. There's no friction at all, just a seamless transition between life and a blip of tech, or a blip of history, or Halloween, I should say. Look at this next shot. I was out and about with the family at Icon Park, and the Ferris wheel was looking amazing that evening with some partly cloudy skies. There was some low light, a crowd, but this wasn't a problem. Unless if I mention it, you probably can't even tell that there was a person in this photo. I wanted to show the Ferris wheel, so within the Google Photo app, I was able to remove this person, crop in, and finally add some blur. Here's how the original picture started. I didn't have to think about any of this at that moment. I just wanted to capture that moment and actually move on. The idea of editing came later. I was able to draft a visual of this story after the image was taken, instead of thinking of that story to tell before taking the actual image. I'm not a photography expert or a videographer for that matter. I just want to be able to go out and capture the moments when I can on short notice. And when it comes to pictures, you can definitely count on this phone. With videos, that's sort of a very sensitive area because a lot of tech reviews love to compare this phone with iPhone. And I'll admit, the iPhone takes fantastic video, and I have yet to see any other phone take better video than the iPhone. But this isn't a video about comparing phones. It's about showing how well this phone actually performs with what it has. Almost every time you compare two items, there's always going to be a difference. It's better not to compare at all, but instead see if the device that you have can do what you want it to do. Let me say that there have been times when I've used my previous Google Pixel 5 to film YouTube videos for my actual car channel. It's one of those situations where you just want to go and shoot and not think about anything else. You want to relax while you actually work on your hobby, but you want to capture it as well. I get that. We all have those days, and this is why this phone does that job well, and it does it in 4K too. Here's a clip of a YouTube video. The first 6 minutes, which was day one of this video, I filmed it on my Google Pixel 6.5, not my 6, or this short that I actually did with that same Google Pixel 5. I know, this is a Pixel 6 Pro experience, but my point is that even on the Pixel 5, I was able to count on that phone to make video and post it on my other channel. The quality is great and it just works. So the phone did what it needed to do. I didn't have to compare it to the quality of an iPhone at this point. Take a look at this vlogging test that I shot, and I made it in 4K at 60 frames per second. I have video stabilization mode on, which crops in the image just a little bit. And yes, you can actually turn this off in the video settings, but it's pretty solid. It looks great, it's stable, and it's great footage overall. Take a look at this B-roll I took with cinematic pan. If you don't have a gimbal, you don't need one. Just take some B-roll with the cinematic pan enabled. It stabilizes the image for you as well as creates that slow motion effect. My point here is, don't compare this phone to any other phone. Just ask yourself, can it take photos? Yes, it can, and it does it well. Can it take videos? Yes, it can, and it does that well too. But what else about this phone? Well, let's talk software. Google has been under pressure the past couple of months with the Pixel 6 line. Android 12 introduced Material You, which was introduced to a new device, the Pixel 6 line, that also sports a new system on chip on that new device. That's a lot of change in one release, and if you expected everything to go smoothly, nothing ever does. There's no amount of QA that can occur in a controlled environment that will bring out those flaws. People are, well, individuals, and that means that every individual will use their phone, well, in a unique way. This means that it's the only time that flaws will start to become apparent. Every user has a unique use case for an app, a phone, photography, you name it. Any manufacturer just has to release their product, wait and see the outcome, and improve it based on that feedback. Dogfooding is not even enough. This goes with anything. Now, this doesn't mean that you should release a crappy product. You should release the best thing you can and shoot for the moon. But when quirks arise, and they will, just be prepared to work through those issues, and that's what these companies do, just like Google and Apple. Do you think that a new release of software every year is to introduce only new features? Not at all. It's to actually address the issues that existed in previous versions that in turn become updates and fixes, or new features altogether with major releases or updates. No operating system like Android or iOS is ever a complete operating system. Now for the screen on this device. The refresh rate at 120 Hz is amazing. It feels very smooth to scroll through apps, web pages, or even multiple virtual screens. It's no slouch either, with its Tensor processor combined with 12 gigs of RAM. I'm a car enthusiast and I love being able to use the split screen feature for 2 apps. When I take my car out for a drive, it's nice to be able to open up Google Maps and my car info dash app simultaneously. And the phone does this well without issues, no lags on the screen. The 120 Hz screen just works wonders with this. or if I want to use Cyjik navigation instead of Google Maps while using my K-Tuner app to still view my automotive health dashboard. The benefit here of Cyjik is the add-on of a dash cam where I can have my navigation going, the dash cam enabled, and my vehicle's dashboard. The phone just handles this well with its processor and the amount of memory that it comes with. Material You introduces some back-end features to Android 12, such as widgets, theming, and adaptive Google Launcher settings. It also adds cohesiveness to widgets and themes. At the moment, when you add a widget not designed for Material You, the widget looks like it doesn't even belong. Theming, widgets, and launcher customization isn't something new to Android in general, since launchers like Nova, which is what I use, have allowed this. But Nova is a separate launcher for Android, and Material You is baked into Google Launcher natively. Material You and Google Launcher is definitely a gorgeous design, but still has some missing features when compared to Nova. For example, being able to customize gestures, the app drawers, and folders, that's just to name a few. But when you add Nova to Android 12, it works very well and it actually feels native. Now, what about battery life, the fingerprint scanner, or that screen flickering we've been dealing with or have read about? Ah, yes, those issues. Well, like any device, nothing is ever perfect. I initially purchased the 6 Pro back on launch in October of 2021. I received it fairly quickly. The phone was a marvel. I mean, unboxing it and seeing it right before my eyes was just stunning to say the least. Its camera, bar, bump, rail, or whatever you want to call it, it just looked well put. The phone felt great in the hands and I was happy to have a bigger phone again. I previously had the 3XL and then the 5, so downsizing from the 3XL to the 5 literally wasn't easy. But after using it for the first 24 hours or maybe 48, I experienced some issues with screen flickering, the fingerprint scanner, and battery life. However, I'm gonna tell you why those issues aren't really deal breakers for me, and they shouldn't be deal breakers for you at all. So first, the screen flickering. I noticed that when I would transition between apps, I would get this flicker almost as if the app had to adjust resolution for a split second or millisecond. It didn't occur every time, but when it did, and if I paid close attention at the right moment, it was definitely obvious. This was alarming at first because if I had this as a hardware issue, I'm now stuck with this phone. Putting that aside, the fingerprint issue itself with unlocking was more of an inconvenience than anything else. Sure, I like having fingerprint scanner. It's a convenience, and who doesn't like convenience? But it isn't the end of the world. And if I can't get it to work properly, I typically just use a very, very long PIN or a very complex password if I can't use the actual fingerprint scanner. My real issue with the fingerprint scanner though is when I use my phone in the dark. For example, if I'm in bed and I wake up in the middle of the night and I need to unlock my phone, that glaring fingerprint outline on the screen is literally blinding. The battery for many is an issue, and for me, honestly, is just that I don't care. And here's why. The moment fast charging became a thing, I stopped worrying about battery life. The day I started to work from home many years ago, I stopped worrying about battery life. The day I got a car charger, I stopped worrying about battery life. The day I got a wireless charger, yeah, I stopped worrying about battery life. And the day I got wireless fast charging, yes, I stopped worrying about battery life. I mean, seriously, there are things that could be worse with this device. Yeah, I know. What if I want to go out hiking all day? Well, just get a damn battery bank. I mean, really, if you're hiking, you're probably using your phone less anyway. Every issue has a solution, and we've been spoiled with convenience, but these aren't real deal breakers for this phone. I'm sure a lot of us can come up with a handful of reasons why longer battery life is better, but at the end of the day, no matter what you say, it really comes down to convenience. This phone is fantastic, even with the flaws that it comes with. All phones have flaws. It just really depends on how you accept those flaws. With the issues I experienced, I returned my Pixel 6 Pro initially, only to find that I did miss it and ended up reordering it, and this is the second one here. The second time I ordered it, it took 5 to 6 weeks to arrive due to higher demand, but it was definitely worth it. So, if you like a product, figure out how you can learn to live with those issues if possible, because there is no such thing as a finished product. We do want the feel of a finished and polished product, of course, but if this were the case, phone releases would probably occur every other year or longer if the phone had no issues. Google, like other tech companies, stand behind their products. They are in the business of making money, and if a product stinks, they'll improve it. Google has actually pushed out updates that have improved the experience of the Pixel 6 line, with more updates to come for the next 4 or 5 years. My second attempt with this phone, along with newer patches recently rolled out in January of 2022 and more coming this month in February, definitely makes this phone feel a lot different compared to when I initially got it back in 2021. And I mean that in a good way. Google also now supports their devices for 5 years with security updates, but that's starting with the Pixel 6 line though. If the phone can do what you expect it to do and not if it can do it better than any other phone, stick with it if you have it, or buy it if you are in the market for an Android phone. It's a great phone, priced well when compared to any other flagship, and it's a high-end phone, and nothing beats having a pure Android experience. And if you're a tinkerer like me and want added security, Graphene OS works well with these devices too. I love my Pixel 6 and it's my daily. The only regret I actually have was sending it back and having to repurchase it and having to wait longer for the shipping time the second time around. This has been my experience and your mileage will vary, but definitely you can't go wrong with this device. What's been your experience so far? What issues or concerns do you even have with this phone? Let's talk more in the comments and share some of those ideas and opinions to see why this phone is still great to go out and buy. So if you found this video helpful in any way, please give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe and click on the bell icon for notifications of future videos from this channel. And thanks for watching.